ever get the feeling like there's this whole committee in your head arguing before you make even like the tiniest decision? It's like,
Yeah.
should I have that extra cookie or not?
Right.
Turns out, Freud was kind of onto something with that idea.
Yeah, it's wild how Freud's ideas about the id, the ego, and the superego,
Oh yeah,
they're still relevant today.
totally.
Even if you've like never even, opened one of his books.
It's like those terms are everywhere.
For sure.
Like they've seeped into like just our everyday language.
Mm-hmm.
But what do they actually mean?
Yeah.
Like really mean. So let's break down this tripartite personality theory.
Okay, so the big idea from Freud, right?
Okay.
It's that our personality isn't just like one thing.
Okay.
It's more like this interplay of three systems. The id, ego, and superego.
Okay.
So think of them as like different forces, always pushing and pulling at our behavior.
So it's not like, are these like actual parts of our brain
Right.
that we could like see on a scan?
Exactly, yeah. More like conceptual models,
Mm-hmm.
to help us understand the drives and motivations we have.
Okay.
And get this, Freud thought most of this interplay, happens unconsciously.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of what we do just feels automatic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't, sit there and decide to grab that donut this morning.
Right.
It just sort of happened.
That's the id talking. It's like the primal part of us.
Okay.
The part that's all about the pleasure principle.
Ah.
Immediate gratification no matter what.
Okay.
Think of that toddler, throwing a tantrum in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Pure id energy right there.
Okay. I feel very seen right now.
Right.
So basically, the id is the source of all those impulsive desires.
Mm-hmm.
The, I want it NW voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That part of us driven by those basic instincts like hunger or thirst or, other urges.
Okay.
And it just doesn't care about logic or, is this socially acceptable, Okay.
Should I grab that donut off someone else's plate? The id doesn't care.
So that's where the ego comes in, right? To stop us from making those really impulsive decisions.
You got it. The ego, it develops.
Okay.
As we interact with the real world.
Okay.
And start to realize that not every desire can be instantly fulfilled.
Right.
It operates on the reality principle.
Okay.
Trying to, satisfy those needs from the id.
Okay.
But in a way that's practical.
Right.
And keeps us out of trouble.
So the ego is like the mediator, right? Between the screaming toddler id and the real world.
Yeah. I love that.
With all its rules and limitations.
It's constantly negotiating.
Okay.
Trying to find a balance between what we want and what we can actually get.
Okay.
Think of it like, a really skilled diplomat.
Okay.
They're trying to appease this volatile dictator.
Right.
While still keeping good relationships with the other countries, know? Right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So where did the superego come into all of this?
The superego.
Okay.
This is where things get a little more interesting. Think of this as our moral compass.
Okay.
The voice of all those roles and values that we learn from society, our parents, even just our culture.
So is the one judging our every move,
totally.
Telling us if we're being,
right,
good or bad.
Exactly. And it develops a little later
Yeah.
than the id and the ego
Right.
as we, internalize those expectations and
Yeah.
start forming our sense of right and wrong. And it's not always, super gentle about it.
Okay.
The superego can be harsh,
Right.
even unforgiving, leading to guilt and shame when we don't live up to its standards.
So we have this primal id demanding instant gratification,
Mm-hmm.
a pragmatic ego, trying to keep things in check,
Right.
and this super judgmental superego
Yeah.
setting, the moral bar.
Mm.
So, like, how does anyone function with all of that going on?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's this constant interplay.
Right.
This push and pull between all three, ego, superego,
Right.
that shapes us.
Okay.
It influences our decisions. Sometimes they cooperate, sometimes they clash, and the outcome of that struggle is what we see as our behavior.
Okay, so let's say I'm, trying to decide if I'm going to go to the gym or stay home and binge watch my favorite show.
Right.
How would these three parts be?
Weighing in.
Yeah, weighing in on that decision.
Well, your id is screaming
All right.
comfort, relaxation, instant gratification, stay on that couch, all about seeking pleasure
Right.
and avoiding, anything that feels like work or effort.
Okay, and my superego is like discipline, self-improvement. You promised yourself you'd get in shape.
Exactly.
Like laying on the guilt trip.
The superego holds those idealized versions of ourselves,
Right.
Our aspirations and moral standards. And it can be, pretty relentless, reminding us when we fall short.
And so then my poor ego is stuck in the middle.
Yes.
Trying to figure out how to make everyone happy.
The master negotiator, right.
Yeah.
Trying to balance all those conflicting desires.
Okay.
So it might say, okay, compromise, quick workout, and then we watch an episode.
Right.
Or, it's been a long week, I deserve a break.
Right.
Basically, the ego is just trying to find that solution that satisfies the id, but doesn't completely ignore the superego.
Okay, this is all making so much sense.
Yeah.
It's like my whole life is this giant internal negotiation.
And how well your ego manages that negotiation, that balance, it really influences, your personality, decision-making, even your mental well-being.
Okay.
If the id always wins, you might struggle with impulsivity.
Right.
But if the superego is always in charge, you might feel rigid or guilty,
Yeah.
unable to enjoy those simple pleasures.
So it's all about finding that balance.
Exactly.
That sweet spot where the id, the ego, the superego, they can all coexist.
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Because achieving that balance, it's not always easy.
Yeah.
And sometimes, when that inner conflict gets too intense, the ego has some pretty interesting defense mechanisms to protect itself.
Okay. But this whole internal world is so much more complex than
more entertaining too, right?
Yeah, way more entertaining than I thought.
Right.
But before we move on, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Does any of this make you want to, listen to some Polyphia?
Polyphia.
Yeah, they have this song, Ego Death. And it might be a little much, but I feel like it kind of captures this inner struggle we're talking about.
Yeah. I haven't really explored their music.
Okay.
I tend to think they're a little pretentious.
Okay.
But hey, if it connects to Freud, I'll give it a shot.
Okay, cool. Ego Death, featuring Steve Vai.
Okay.
It's actually a pretty solid track,
Mm-hmm.
even if they are a little out there.
Okay, I'll add it to my list.
Okay.
But now let's get back to those defense mechanisms.
Okay.
That's where things really get interesting. So, we were talking about that constant back and forth
Right.
between the id, ego, and superego.
Yeah.
But what happens when things get to be too much,
Right.
Like too much pressure on the ego.
Yeah, it sounds exhausting, like always mediating between those three.
It is.
Does the ego ever, get a break?
Well, not really a break.
Okay.
But it has some, tricks to manage that pressure.
Okay.
Freud called them defense mechanisms.
Okay.
They're basically unconscious ways
Okay.
the ego protects itself from that anxiety.
So, the ego has its own,
Yeah.
secret arsenal
Right.
for dealing with that inner conflict.
That's like a mental martial art.
Okay.
Learning to deflect the blows, you
Yeah.
know? The anxiety, the guilt, all those uncomfortable feelings
Right.
that come from trying to balance the id and the superego.
Okay.
And the thing is,
Mm-hmm.
we don't even know we're using them.
So they're happening in the background.
Totally in the background.
Okay, that's sneaky.
Sneaky, but super effective.
Okay.
Say you have this, really embarrassing memory.
Mm-hmm.
You cringe every time you think about it.
Oh, yeah?
Your superego's all over you,
Right.
making you feel ashamed.
Yeah.
The ego senses that distress.
Okay.
Might just, repress the memory,
Okay.
bury it deep down,
Right.
where it can't hurt you anymore.
That seems like a pretty, drastic solution.
It is, yeah.
Is that healthy, though?
Well, repression can be tricky.
Okay.
It's a double-edged sword, really. It can give you, temporary relief
Right.
from that anxiety.
Okay.
But if it becomes a pattern,
Yeah.
those feelings, they can fester,
Okay.
cause problems later on.
Right, like sweeping dirt under the rug.
Exactly.
It might look clean,
Yeah.
but eventually
Eventually.
you gotta deal with it.
You gotta deal with that pile of dirt.
Okay, so some things you just gotta confront head on.
Right.
What are some other ways the ego deals with those internal struggles?
Okay, let's imagine you're, super angry with your boss.
Okay.
But obviously yelling at them is not a good move.
Right, not good for your career.
Not good at all.
Okay.
So your ego might use displacement,
Okay.
redirecting that anger
Right.
onto a safer target.
Like,
Your houseplant
oh,
or that driver who cut you off,
Right. So that's why they say don't go grocery shopping when you're angry.
Exactly.
You might snap at the cashier.
Right, or buy all that junk food
Yeah, all that junk food.
you don't even need.
Right.
A displacement, it can be subtle,
Okay.
but it's a way to, release that energy without the consequences of facing the real source of your anger.
So repression is hiding those feelings from ourselves.
Yes.
Displacement is redirecting them outwards.
Outwards, yeah.
Yeah.
What other ones, what other defense mechanisms are there?
Well, there's projection.
Okay.
This is when we take our own unacceptable thoughts or feelings and put them on someone else.
Okay.
Pointing the finger
Right.
instead of looking inward.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
can see how that would be useful.
It's classic.
Instead of admitting I'm being insecure,
Yeah.
I just say, everyone LSC is insecure.
Exactly. It's
Okay.
a way of protecting the ego
Right.
from those uncomfortable truths.
Okay, this is making me think about all the times
Yes.
I've criticized someone for being messy
Yeah.
when really I'm like, the messy one? Right. Projection lets us
Yeah.
disown those parts of ourselves we don't like
Okay.
and project them outward
Right.
so we don't have to deal with them.
Okay, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like our ego is this
Yeah.
masker illusionist
Yes.
creating all these like smoke and mirrors
That's a great analogy
to make us feel safe.
defense mechanisms are all about
Yeah.
that sense of safety,
Okay.
even if it means distorting reality a little bit.
So are defense mechanisms like always a bad thing?
That's a good question.
They seem to have a purpose, right?
They do.
They're trying to protect us
Yeah.
from like emotional overload.
You're right. They serve a purpose.
Okay.
In the short term, they're helpful,
Okay.
to navigate tough situations,
Right.
protect our self-esteem,
Okay.
keep things balanced.
Mm-hmm.
But if you rely on them too much,
Right.
they can prevent you from
Okay.
facing your true self
Right.
and growing,
So it's about finding that balance again.
Balance is key.
Using them when they're helpful,
Right.
but not letting them run the show.
Exactly.
But how do you know when it's crossed the line
Good question.
from helpful to harmful?
That's not always easy.
Okay.
One sign is, if it starts messing with your life,
Okay.
your relationships,
Right.
your ability to just function,
Mm.
are you always blaming others?
Okay.
Avoiding difficult conversations,
Right.
pulling yourself back because of, fear.
Right.
Those could be signs that those mechanisms are working against you.
This is making me very self-aware.
Yeah.
It's like understanding these defense mechanisms is a really powerful tool
It is.
for personal growth.
For sure.
Like having a decoder ring for your own behavior.
It absolutely is.
Oh.
The more we understand these patterns, the more control we have,
Right.
over our thoughts, our feelings, even our actions.
Okay, I want to
Yeah.
dive deeper into this.
Okay.
What are some other examples?
Well, one that can be tricky
Okay.
is rationalization.
Clear.
This is when we come up with excuses, justifications for our behavior, even if they're, flimsy
Okay.
or illogical.
So instead of admitting I messed up,
Yeah.
I'm like creating this story
Right.
where I'm the hero,
Exactly.
even if it means
Yeah.
bending the truth a little.
We all do it. It's very human
Okay.
to protect ourselves from
Yeah.
feeling bad. But if you take it too far,
Yeah.
it can stop us from learning,
Right.
and taking responsibility.
So it's about being honest, even when it's hard.
Honesty is key.
But what about those times when you just, like, can't face reality?
Right.
Something so painful, you just block it out.
That's denial.
Okay.
The ego's way of saying,
Right.
nope, not dealing with that right now. Okay.
It's like
Great.
pretending the problem isn't even there.
Denial sounds pretty dangerous.
It can be, yeah.
Like if it stops you from dealing with,
Right.
real issues.
Exactly. Like someone might be in denial about a health problem.
Right.
And not get treatment.
Right.
Or a relationship that's falling apart.
Right.
But they pretend everything's fine.
So denial is like, that ostrich burying its head in the sand.
Exactly.
Reality's gonna catch up.
It always does.
Eventually.
Denial might feel good for a bit.
Yeah.
But in the long run,
Right.
it leads to bigger problems.
Right. Like ignoring a leaky roof.
Exactly.
That small leak
Yeah.
becomes major damage.
Major damage.
Okay, so this is making me wonder,
Hmm.
are there any defense mechanisms
Yeah.
that are actually healthy?
That's a great question.
Like, are they all just
Right.
ways to distort reality?
Well, it leads us to one of the most interesting ones.
Sublimation. This is when we
Okay.
channel those, destructive impulses,
Right.
those primal urges from the id into something creative, productive, socially acceptable.
So taking that raw energy from the id and making it into something beautiful.
Exactly.
Meaningful.
Instead of lashing out in anger, you might, go for a run.
Okay.
Write a song.
Mm-hmm.
Paint something.
Okay.
Sublimation lets us tap into that energy without letting it control us.
Wow, that's actually pretty amazing.
Right.
It's like turning darkness into light.
Yes.
Finding the silver lining,
It highlights how adaptable we are, how resilient the human psyche is.
Yeah.
We can take those impulses, those things that might lead to bad behavior, and use them for creativity, growth, self-expression.
This is giving me a whole new perspective.
Yeah.
It's like those mechanisms we thought were negative can actually be strengths.
That's a powerful insight.
Yeah.
It reminds us that even those parts of ourselves, the ones we judge, can be valuable.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. I feel like I'm understanding this whole internal world in a totally different way.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of the onion, revealing all the complexities of the human psyche.
And we've only just...
we've just scratched the surface.
Yes, scratched the surface.
Freud's theories, they're so rich, multi-layered, endless opportunities to explore and discover.
I'm ready to keep exploring.
Okay, great.
Where do we go next?
The stages of psychosexual development.
Ooh, that sounds intriguing. I'm a little nervous, but mostly excited.
It's a wild ride.
Okay.
But it gives us some really fascinating insights into how our early experiences shape us as adults.
Okay, so, ready to tackle this whole psychosexual development thing?
Okay.
But before we, dive into it, can we just acknowledge how much this topic makes people squirm?
It's definitely a topic that gets, strong reaction.
Do you like Freud's most famous?
Yeah.
Or infamous, I guess.
Right, and for good reason,
Yeah.
Freud was looking at, some pretty sensitive stuff.
Right.
How our early experiences, especially those, related to pleasure.
Okay.
And, bodily sensations might affect us as adults.
And when Freud talks about sexuality, he's not just talking about, intercourse.
No, not at all.
It's more,
it's broad. Yeah.
Broader.
Freud saw sexuality as this, kind of driving force, this energy present from birth.
Okay.
And it expresses itself in different ways as we develop.
Okay, so how does this...
He called it libido.
Oh, okay.
And he thought that how this libido is, channeled during childhood can really impact us later on.
Okay, that makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
So tell me about these stages. Where does it all begin?
It all starts with the oral stage.
Okay.
From birth to about 18 months.
Right.
Think about babies.
Right.
everything goes right in their mouths.
Yeah.
Sucking, biting, chewing.
Right.
Those are how they explore the world.
Okay.
Experience pleasure.
So it's not just about, like, the feeding.
No.
It's about,
It's about experiencing...
Right, experiencing the world.
Through those sensations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And Freud, he believed this stage.
Okay.
It's crucial for developing trust.
Okay.
And security.
So if the baby's needs are met, like, consistently...
Yeah, if they're met...
They develop that trust.
They develop this trust that
right.
The world is good.
Okay.
That their needs will be taken care of.
But what happens if,
Yeah.
if those needs aren't met?
Right, if there's neglect or frustration during this stage,
right.
Freud thought it could lead to what he called an oral fixation.
Okay.
It's this lingering focus
right.
on those oral sensations.
Okay.
Even as an adult.
So, like, people who are...
yeah, think about people who...
Like chewing gum all the time.
Chewing gum, biting their nails.
Okay.
Smoking, even overeating.
Right.
Those could be signs of an oral fixation.
Right.
A way to, like, get that comfort they might have missed out on.
So the oral stage, it's all about those early experiences of pleasure and security.
Through the mouth.
Yeah. Through the mouth. What happens next?
Well, around 18 months to 3 years old,
okay,
we enter the anal stage.
Okay, before...
Now, before you laugh...
Yeah, before I giggle.
Freud was all about, bodily functions and how they connect to psychology.
I'm trying to keep an open mind. So, what's so important about this anal stage?
This is when the child is learning about control.
Okay.
Both, bodily control and control over their environment.
Okay.
Potty training's a big deal here.
Right.
And Freud thought how parents handle this could shape the kid's personality.
So if parents are, like, super strict...
Yeah, if they're really controlling...
About potty training?
Yeah.
It could,
It could backfire.
He
thought so, yeah. He said that overly harsh potty training could lead to what he called an anal retentive personality.
Okay.
Someone who's orderly, stubborn, needs control.
And on the flip side, if parents are too lax...
Exactly, yeah.
It could lead to...
What we call an anal expulsive personality.
Right, someone messy, disorganized...
Right.
Maybe a little rebellious.
That was the idea.
Okay.
But remember, these are like the extremes.
Right.
Most people are somewhere in between.
Right, okay.
And there are like tons of other factors that affect personality.
Okay, so we've got oral, anal. What's next?
Next is the phallic stage.
Okay.
Which happens roughly between ages 3 and 6.
Okay.
This is where things get a little more complex.
Okay.
And maybe controversial.
I think I know where this is going.
Yeah.
The
Oedipus complex.
Yes, the Oedipus complex.
You got it.
Okay.
This is the stage where Freud thought kids become aware of their genitals.
Okay.
And start having, those very early sexual feelings.
Okay.
But in a very immature and unconscious way.
Yeah, okay.
And according to Freud, these feelings often get directed at the parent of the opposite sex.
So it's not like kids literally want to, like, marry their parents.
No. Yeah.
It's more,
It's symbolic.
Okay.
The Oedipus complex is really a metaphor for the emotions kids experience then.
Okay.
things like love, desire, rivalry, jealousy,
Right.
fear of punishment.
Right.
The child is like navigating all that
Right.
while also figuring out their own gender identity.
And how does this whole Oedipus complex get resolved?
Freud thought that eventually
Right.
the child identifies
Right.
with the same-sex parent,
Yeah.
learns to, repress those desires
Right.
and channel that energy into developing their sense of self. They
Yeah.
take on the values, the
Wow.
behaviors of that parent,
Okay.
which helps form their superego.
Right. That moral compass.
Exactly, the moral
Faye
compass.
talked about.
We talked it.
Okay, so phallic stage is about
Yeah.
those early sexual feelings
Right.
and forming
And figuring out
gender identity.
Yeah.
Okay, what happens after all that?
Well, things get a little quieter
Right.
during the latency stage.
Okay.
That's from about age 6 to puberty.
Okay.
The libido is like dormant.
Okay, so it's like a break
Yeah, you could say that.
from all that
Yeah.
psychosexual development.
The kid's energy goes towards social skills,
Right.
learning,
exploring
exploring the world beyond their family.
Okay, so it's time to, like,
Consolidate.
from those earlier stages.
Yeah, and prepare for
Right.
adolescence
Okay.
and adulthood.
Okay, and then finally,
Hmm.
the genital stage.
The genital state.
This is where, like, adult sexuality emerges.
That's right. This stage begins at puberty and continues, throughout adulthood.
Okay.
The libido reawakens,
Right.
but this time it's focused on peers, not parents.
Right, right.
It's about mature relationships, intimacy,
right.
the ability to love and care for others.
So it's like a culmination
But it's the culmination
of all those earlier stages.
Yeah, where the individual can experience their sexuality
Okay.
in a healthy, mature way.
Okay, that's quite a journey.
It is a journey.
From babies putting everything in their mouths to adults
Forming relationships.
forming mature relationships. It's fascinating how those early things can affect us so much later.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And, some of Freud's ideas might seem outdated or even, controversial.
Right.
But he was brilliant
Yeah.
at observing people. Okay.
And his theories still spark debate and new ways of thinking.
This has definitely been thought-provoking. And you know what? I think I'm going to listen to that Polyphia song again.
Polyphia?
Yeah, Ego Death.
Okay.
Featuring Steve I.
Right, right.
They can be a little,
pretentious,
yeah.
But I think after this conversation, it might hit differently.
It's amazing how art can, illuminate those parts of us you don't always see.
For sure.
Well, until next time,
Yes.
keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop digging deeper into what it means to be human.
Well said.